wrap-ups of the year. And it was quite a reading month, and so long that I've realized in the past years when I've started to read more in a month, when I have a month that I do read a lot, reading wrap-ups can feel a bit stressful trying to cram everything in. And I don't have a ton of video ideas for this month, and I thought, you know what, why not just make them in two parts and be able to linger a bit longer talking about each book. And I think this will be fun to do it this way. So yes, I will get into the books. So the first two books were books that I did finish technically in the year 2022. But these were books that I started in the summer of 2021 and then really didn't want either of them to end. So I spent a long time with both of them. And I will tell you about both of them because they were such wonderful reads and books I'll definitely be returning to at some point. This definitely took a lot more concentration than the other one. So this first one was The Sun in the Morning by MMK. MMK is a kind of historical fiction author, although she has a couple different genres that she's written, and she also has some mysteries, and I don't know if they are historical mysteries or contemporary setting. But then the way that I found out about her was through her Cinderella story, which is called The Ordinary Princess, which is a really sweet little gem of a Cinderella retelling, and I loved it. I read it last middle grade March. And then when I was Googling her, I saw she had a 3-part autobiography series about growing up in India in the Raj era and then going back to England, but her first love always being India. And I just immediately bought the first one in this series. And this is pretty lengthy, and since it's 3 parts. So it is about 500 pages or 450 pages, this first one. And it is just filled, just brimming over with so many interesting details and tidbits, and just, I love reading books like this that make you come out thinking that fact is stranger than fiction. Is that the phrase? I think it's fact is stranger than fiction. And just how many interesting anecdotes she has from her family. And it starts out with her talking about both of her parents' childhoods, and they had fairly different childhoods. And then her father laying eyes on her mother for the first time in a train station and knowing immediately that that was the woman that he wanted to marry. And eventually they did get married, obviously, because she's here in this book writing about her parents. And then her years growing up in India, and just India to her was always home. She felt so at peace there and safe and just loved her life there. And I think it's a really interesting portrait to hear firsthand from someone who did live as, a British soldier's daughter in India in this time, what it was like for her. And she did talk about there was kind of a variety of experiences with the children of British soldiers that were living in India at the time. Her parents liked her having kind of Indian ayahs, so Indian nannies that would take care of her. And she thought her life was so much better this way because they had more freedoms and they were kind of allowed to do the things that Indian children were allowed to and just play very boisterously outside. And she thought the other kids just seemed really bored and cooped up. And so that was something that she really loved. And just the friendships that she had with the household staff, it was really, really touching. And just some of the things that happened to her that are so outside of my experience and are just fascinating to me. And one is her father told about a time that he was on a ship, and it was very calm seas when they were on the ship, but they were transporting many, many elephants under the ship. And the elephants started to notice the waves. Actually, the elephants were on the top of the ship. The elephants started to notice the waves, and they started to sway together. And eventually, once one elephant saw that happening, the others started to follow suit. And they would sway so much that eventually water started coming on board. They were taking on water, and they thought eventually the ship would capsize. And because all of the elephants had this coordinated effort. And her father remembered thinking it would be such a mystery to people finding this, sunken ship, and they would know that it had been calm at sea when it sank. Why did this ship sink? And they were getting really scared. And then finally, one of the people on board the ship had the really smart idea to turn half the elephants so then their rocking wasn't coordinated. But I just thought that was such a sweet anecdote. And then she had lots of colorful family members. And I mean, it is just brimming over with so many details. I could spend 2 hours just reading out all of the things that I underlined. She has such a beautiful writing style. And so this is the beginning of a beautiful reading relationship with MMK. I want to read as much as I can by her. Another anecdote that was kind of just, I couldn't believe it actually happened. She had a very grumpy family member, and I think it was a great uncle of some sort. And he very begrudgingly attended church each Sunday. And he would sit down in his box. You know how they used to have like a family box you would sit in. And he would have a stack of coins that he was going to give in the offertory. And he would give about 10 minutes of the service to this. And where he was sitting, the preacher could clearly see him. And if the preacher's sermon went past 10 minutes, he would, at incremental times, take another coin from the stack and take away and take away. And if the sermon went in long, nothing would go into the offertory. Just how gutsy to do that, clearly, where you're like locking eyes with the person giving the sermon. So many amusing things that happen like that. And she talks a lot about how she was really self-conscious then as she's turning into a teenager. Just she didn't like how she looked. And just she really has such a deep, deep love for her family. She also has a very vivid memory of so many things that happened within her childhood. And so that's why I think all of these fascinating details are here. And she does talk about how disappointed she was the first time that she got to see England, just how dreary and cold and gloomy it was. But that was going in on a cloudy day and more in northern England. When they did go, I think it was to Devon, she thought it was a lot more beautiful then. But I Googled so many locations from reading this. And like I said, I want to read so much more by her. So right now I do have, it's a very slow burner book. I'm going to not dedicate a ton of time to it in the next couple months, just listen here and there when I can. But it is The Far Pavilions, and it is just this very epic historical fiction. I think it's around 1,000 pages. So then maybe later on in the spring, maybe in like April or May, I'll check out a physical copy from the library and just double down and read a lot. But I was so scared about being done with this that then I went ahead and got Golden Afternoon, which is the sequel to this. So I am so excited. Oh, and I just realized how pretty the spines are. So yes, here are the first two. And then I am not going to buy the third one, though, until I have read Golden Afternoon. Now, Golden Afternoon is not quite as long. It is only around 415 pages. And then I'm not worried about not getting access to this because these are, I am pretty sure, print on demand. Oh, it doesn't say. But yes, I'm so excited to keep reading, The Far Pavilions and then read Golden Afternoon. Maybe this would be a good summertime read. I don't know. It just depends. I typically have been having one nonfiction on the go, and that has been working so well for me. So it will just be one of mine. Okay, then the other book that I lingered with for a long time and was also a nonfiction book was Martha's Vineyard, Isle of Dreams by Susan Branch. Thank you forever to my booktube friend Taylor from The Babbling Bee for telling me about Susan Branch. And since then, it's been really fun to know others in the online community who like Susan Branch. One of my friends, Melissa, who is on Instagram as a Duchess Inside. And then my friend Elizabeth, who is, I'm pretty sure it's just Elizabeth Brink on Instagram, are both Susan Branch fans. And Catherine from Taking Tea with Catherine. So it is lovely to just know others that love and adore Susan Branch as much as I do. And also Amy from Amy at Hearthridge, I think is the name of her channel. So this book, it starts from a place of brokenness where Susan Branch, this is a bit of a spoiler, but it happens, it's where the book starts. Susan Branch's husband has left her for another woman, and they lived in California together, and she up and leaves and just wants to go to Martha's Vineyard. She just decides to go to Martha's Vineyard. And this is her time of healing. It's over the course of 3 or 4 years, and she buys this teensy little house called Hollyoak. I think she calls it a cottage, holly oak, and just fills it with all of the warmth and gentle domesticity possible. And the phrase, me talking about something being life softening is coined by Susan Branch. And then what makes this book especially fabulous is just how visual it is. It's written in her script and has so many illustrations. Oh, and just wonderful, just filled with charm. So here, this chart is fabulous old movies guaranteed to comfort and fortify the broken heart in no particular order. The More the Merrier, Christmas in Connecticut, Suspicion, Roman Holiday, Hobson's Choice, The Quiet Man, Indiscreet, Palm Beach Story, Top Hat, Bachelor Mother, The Bishop's Wife, Mrs. Miniver, Margie, The Lady Eve, Ball of Fire, and the 1935 David Copperfield, which, if I remember correctly, I think that has W.C. Fields in it. And I've wanted to see that for years, but I haven't been able to access it. And then she includes lots of pictures and just has, this is not written nearly as lyrical as The Sun in the Morning is, but I love how approachable the writing style is. And I saved this for just the very, very sick feeling days, very intense fatigue days where I had trouble kind of enjoying anything. I was just trying to get through the day. This was just such a balm. And so I was terrified of finishing this. But I know that my friend Taylor, she just picks it up and starts rereading it instantly whenever she does finish a read. So this is one I hope I reread many, many times in my life. But then also to ensure that I would not be without more Susan Branch material, I bought the sequel, which is Susan Branch, A Fine Romance, Falling in Love with the English Countryside. This is unfortunately, the sizes do not match. I got a used copy of this and I didn't think about whether the sizes would be different or not. But honestly, this is a little bulky, so I kind of like this size. I just wish they matched in their sizes, but that is okay. I'm very excited. And this one's going to be kind of a little bit less sad. And there is the first one in the series. Where did it go? And I just noticed, it's the little details like this. It says, with love from the heart of the home and me, Susan Branch. And it's a sticker that she put in there. Or someone in the publishing house put in there. And then like the end pages are like that. So she does have a fair number of other books, but they're not nearly as lengthy as these. I don't know how interested I am in them. They have recipes and things, but those might be ones I more want to get from the library. Although she does have one that came out last year, a Christmas one, and it's not Christmas from the Heart of the Home, and it's not Christmas Memories. It's a different one that just came out. That's one that does sound more kind of story-like, and I would be interested in. And she does some quote books, like a common book that come out, and I really like the sounds of those. So those were two books that I just absolutely adored and wanted to linger with them for a very long time. Then I finally read an Elizabeth Goudge. I went a year without reading any Elizabeth Goudge, and it was very sad. So I was very, very pleased to pick up Towers in the Mist. And this, I just loved this. I have had a couple Elizabeth Goudge that I haven't liked as much. The Dean's Watch, which is very popular of hers. I know that people who like Elizabeth Goudge tend to really love that one. So I was very disappointed that I didn't love that one. But then Island Magic, I read the previous summer, and so I'm really happy to say that I loved Towers in the Mist, which is one of her, I feel like, more iconic books that people talk about. And this is set in Elizabethan Oxford, and it was such a wonderful setting for a novel. There was so much love for academia and learning and just getting your hands on any and all books that you can and wanting to investigate the things that you are curious about. And you're following a family, and they take in a boy whose name is Faithful. I almost forgot his name for a second there, but he is an orphan, and it's about his time living with this family. And they're the children in the family. What I love that Elizabeth Goudge is really wonderful at doing is showing a big family, but distinct personalities for all of the children in the family. And I love that. And I love that she can just make characters really come to life. And I was Googling so many different locations that are mentioned in this, and buildings, just places that are in there. And So let me see if I can find real quickly any quotes for you. I love her writing so much. I underlined a fair amount in this book, but I will read just one passage to you, and it says, "Sunset lay over the city. The sky above was a heavenly blue, unutterably peaceful, and of a depth that seemed to reach to eternity. But to the west, behind the gray mass of the castle, it was a molten streaming gold, as though a great furnace blazed beyond the rim of the world. The towers and spires of the city, quietly watchful, rose dazzlingly fair against the blue sky, and caught the reflection of that streaming gold on their comely crests. But down below them, the huddled roofs of the city were bathed in tawny shadows. Beyond the town, the meadows and the winding streams and the willow trees had drawn damp blue mists over their beauty. But beyond them, the hills, like the towers, had light on their crests, and right at the heart of that beauty, a strange center for such peace, was the laughing, jostling, rowdy crowd, the city folk in their jerkins, caps and doublets of red and yellow and green, bright splashes of color among the sober-hued scholars. Their laughing faces, upturned to the stately figure on the black horse, caught the last of the sun and seemed alight with it, burning with an everlasting vitality. No, there is no death, thought Philip, only a perpetual readjustment of the garment of life. And how lovely and how endlessly various is this garment. The beauty of what he saw now caught at his breath, and quick, broken little phrases of description came winging their way like butterflies into his opened mind. Swinging away from the window, he put an arm over his eyes, trying to close his mind's door, to shut it fast on those phrases. They must lie there, dormant as an artist's tubes of colors, till he had time to take them out and fasten them together into a poem. But would they stay there? The loveliest phrases are winged, and when the poet opens the door of the place where he put them, he finds that the tiresome creatures have flown away. And something that I felt very slow on the uptake, I finally realized as I was reading through this, that several of the characters in this are people who were real in history, were real figures. And so it was interesting then to look up their lives, kind of just brief Wikipedia articles about them. Another thing that I liked about this is that Elizabeth Goudge was somewhat interested in and kind of involved in Christian mysticism. But I know there are kind of different levels of mysticism and different avenues that you can take it. But she also had a sense of humor. And so there's one scene in here that seems just very, very mystic and mysterious. And then something happens that just makes it so humorous. And so I love that she never takes herself too seriously. But the scenes that are meant to be sacred are sacred and beautiful. And as always, she really believes in the healing power of beauty and how restorative it can be. And so I love that about her. I'm so excited to continue reading more by her, and just what a special lady she was. Then on a very dark and gritty note, I finally finished Playing for the Ashes by Elizabeth George. This was a buddy read with the lovely Kate from the novel Nomad. We read mysteries together, and we kind of always like to have a Lindley on the go. And then, because we love this series so much, and then we just go a long time without reading one. So I love this series. It's in my top 5 mystery series. And what I love about it so much is that these characters have become so near and dear to me, and kind of, you know, the hangover that you have after reading a classic and how it kind of haunts you, a good one. It haunts you in the best way possible after reading it. And that's what Elizabeth George's books do to me. I have still been thinking about these characters and some of the decisions that they have to make in the end. It starts out with a rugby player. He plays for a team in England, and I can't remember the name if I'm honest. Or cricket. Oh my goodness, all of my details. He plays cricket because the whole title, Playing for the Ashes is a very, very iconic Australia-England cricket game. Anyhow, and he is found dead in his house in the countryside. And so Inspector Lindley and Barbara Havers are going to investigate the case. But as always, Elizabeth George gives us these fabulous plot lines to do with Barbara Havers' personal life and Inspector Lindley's personal life. This was very harrowing in many parts, though. This is not for the faint of heart. It's not like it's graphic with what has happened to bodies, or you're there for the killing, anything like that. But it's the emotional upheaval that you go through in this, and how all of the different characters and suspects, this crime has a ripple effect on all of their lives. But her writing is just pristine. I love that a new Lindley just came out, and this is only, I think, the 6th in the series. So I have so many to read with Kate, and I'm so excited. So cannot wait to continue. And then we move on to some very lighthearted things. And the next thing I read was 15 by Beverly Cleary. And I am just having a Beverly Cleary festival this year. And I'm so excited because I didn't read anything by her last year. And the year before that, I read a lot of Beverly Cleary. I reread Henry Huggins, and then I read some of her other children's fiction I had never read before. Well, I have never read her teen novels, so I'm currently listening through the Henry Huggins series with my son, and then we're going to carry on to Ramona Quimby eventually. And I started the teen novels with 15, and this is very much like, it's going to feel like it has a 15-year-old protagonist. She is constantly agonizing over whether this boy is going to call her, and what she should wear, and how her hair looks. And I just went into it knowing that's how the protagonist was going to feel, and I was able to enjoy this so much. And I think that Beverly Cleary can make even me, enjoy this kind of simple teen romance. It's just, I love her writing style. And it was delightful. It's, I call it like a malt shop romance, is the term I would use. And so then I've been through a bunch of the Henry Huggins now. So, the first 4 in the Henry Huggins series. So Henry Huggins, Henry and Beezus, Henry and Ribsy, and Henry and the Paper Route. And it is all about Henry Huggins, who lives on Klickitat Street, and all the scrapes that he gets into. In the first book, he finds Ribsy, who is this stray dog who's so skinny that Henry names him Ribsy, and the adventures they go on together. They go fishing together, which has some snags, and Henry just gets into all sorts of scrapes. He gets a couple guppies at a pet store and then doesn't realize it is a boy and a girl guppy, and they start reproducing at an unbelievable rate. Like, people talk about rabbits having many offspring, but it's nothing on guppies, and he just ends up with guppies upon guppies upon guppies, and all about him trying to get a bike. And he does live in the same neighborhood as Ramona, Beezus, and Ramona Quimby. So there's a whole series of Ramona. Now, I have to say, growing up, I may have read the Ramona books. I'm not sure if I have, but I definitely read Henry Huggins, and I'm very nostalgic about a summer road trip that we took from Mississippi to New York State to South Carolina and back to Mississippi. We spent a lot of time in the car because just alone from Mississippi to New York State, it was a 24-hour drive, all told. And we listened through the entire Henry Huggins series, and I am just so nostalgic about it. And I hear Ramona and, my interaction now with her through the Henry Huggins books, and I'm like, she is a brat. Like, I am not a Ramona fan. So I am feeling very cautious about going into the Ramona series. I don't know if I'm going to make it through. I'm hoping maybe you get to see things more from her side, but it also doesn't help that Neil Patrick Harris, who narrates the Henry Huggins audiobooks and does an amazing job on them, has a really irritating voice that he gives to Ramona. So I don't know how I'll feel about it. I'm going to try them, and we'll see how I feel. But I'm so excited to continue on. I think is it Jean and Johnny? Let's see, it's right here. Jean and Johnny is the teen book by her that I'm going to read in the month of February. And I'm so excited to do this. So her writing just makes me so happy. It fills me with joy. And I cannot wait to continue. And then after that, I know also Emily's Runaway Imagination I loved. What was the other standalone one that I really liked? Was it Ellen Tebbett's? I think that was the other one. So she has so many books. It's going to be a really fun year. And I've never read Mr. Henshaw, which is written in epistolary format. So I need to try to do that. That is part 1 of my January wrap up. It was really nice to be able to linger on these books longer, and this is still 25 minutes. So I'm going to film part 2 now, and I will be back with another video soon.